my my friend Nick, the producer, Nick Horgan, is the producer of this particular podcast. This guy is probably the most expensive producer of all time. And he was just asking me if I'm ready. I think that we're ready. I get a chance to be able to share with you now a guy that I'm going to force to be my friend for the rest of his life. I told him this. One of the most interesting men. You forget about Dos Equis. We talk about the most interesting man in the world, a 40-year veteran in the hospitality industry. And anyone in the hospitality industry, when you mention John Elston, everyone goes crazy. The fact that even before I got to meet him, I just said he was my friend, and it opened up doors for me already. I use it at the local Jack in the Box, and they have given me more fries because I know John Elston. And I just got a chance to be able to meet him in person today, and I have him here in the studio. So let's not wait any longer. How you doing, Mr. John?
You are amazing. It's a good thing you didn't order tacos because those are off limits. They save those for me at Jack in the Box.
It's not real meat.
Well, no, but it's a taco, and you're talking to a guy who lives in Mexico, and when I get here, I go to Jack in the Box for the tacos. So,
how long have you been in Mexico?
8 years. It'll be 8 years in June.
You speak the language?
Well, I never say I speak the language because as soon as you do, somebody goes right off, and you're like, I guess I don't speak the language. But
do you see it as fast? Because I grew up. My dad is Mexican. My mama's white. When people ask me the nationality, and they were like, "Well, white's not a nationality. If you're blonde hair, blue eyed in Utah, you're white."
Yeah.
But my dad spoke it, and it was so fast.
Yes. Yeah.
Have you been able to slow it down yet? Does
well,
your brain do?
Yeah, I get about 80 to 85% on the intake, and about 25% on the outtake. So I can take it on fast and hear it and understand, and then it's the Spanglish. So, and like you said, one thing that just struck my mind when you said that, when you're blonde and blue eyes, you can be Mexican with blonde and blue eyes in Mexico if you've lived there long enough to become what I've just recently learned, a choyeto. Choyeto, which is a local.
Really?
For Cabo. So
are you a Choyeto now?
Well, I'd like to think that I am, but everybody I run into, they say, nope, it's 7 years. And then when I got 8 years, no, it's 10 years. So, it's just fun. But
what was the biggest transition for you as far as like culturally when you went down?
I think infrastructure, overall infrastructure. We, and rightfully so, at least they're putting some of our tax dollars to work here in the right things. Their roads are generally good. Highways are double wide, and road conditions and infrastructure are still tough. You know, it's a lot of septics and not a lot of sewer and above ground infrastructure, but you make the best of it.
So Remote Revolution, am I correct on this?
Yeah.
That was the book, bestseller, right?
Yeah.
Was it a bestseller to your mom, or was it because I told people right off the bat, I remember when I wrote my first book, my mom was excited about it, and I was like, it's a bestseller.
Yeah.
And because my mom bought it, and she hadn't bought any books except mine. So to her, it was a bestseller.
Yeah.
So, but you've got the real title.
I do.
You've got the real
I have
title.
it, and it's, there's a lot of bestsellers. It starts with the Holy Grail. So it's New York Times bestseller, which I am not.
Okay.
And then it goes to the Wall Street Journal bestseller, of which I'm not.
Okay.
And then it goes to the USA Today, and that's the Triple Crown.
Yes.
Right. If you get into that, and it's a special book and a special approach and a whole different ballgame. I was #1 bestseller on Amazon in the business category, and I'm super proud of that. I was #1 bestseller in the Kindle category.
Yes.
So those two areas, Amazon and Kindle, I kind of got it nailed. And
what about with your cousin? Did a cousin call you and say? Because I found too that the hardest thing with the book was to get the people that I know to read it. Now, ancillary, like on the outside, everyone knows you. You don't know everybody, right?
Right.
Everyone who knows John Elston, John Elston doesn't know them, right?
Yeah,
and
right,
so
right.
I know you're a humble guy,
but
did you have like a close person that when they called you and said, hey, I read the book, you were like, oh my God, like I made it?
Yeah, I did.
Who was that?
It's my father.
Your father?
Yeah.
What did he say?
It's my father. Gosh, I got goosebumps thinking about it. I lost my father 5 years ago. And still to this day, I found it scrolling on my phone yesterday, him sitting in his favorite chair, reading my book and holding the book up. And I cherish that. So My dad was probably most proud of the book. I can't keep my mom out of the mix too. I dedicated the book to my 2 kids and both of my parents, because that's really the foundation of who you become, right? Good or bad or indifferent. Oh gosh, my dad, hardest working guy, and they give people a lot of crap these days for overworking and working too hard. I don't believe it. My dad was who he was because he worked hard. I come from 4 generations of entrepreneurs. And, my dad did working for big companies like Carnation and a company called ARA, which is an automotive air conditioning company. And then 40 years ago, he decided to open his own business. And he did that up until about a year before he passed away, and he retired. And
just he retired as an entrepreneur?
He retired. And, he's probably the most humble man I've ever met.
Really?
Truly. I know I'm biased, but he's probably the most humble guy that I ever met. And he's one of these dads that, he ran his own businesses. Most of the time he worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3, and he coached every Little League team I was on. He coached every football team that I was on. He never missed a game. He took me to the Pine Box Derby. He took me to the Cub Scout meetings. My mom did the Cub Scouts and Weeblos, but my dad coached every single game. I'm not talking, it's great. Go to all your kids' games and sit in the stands and cheer and go out to eat afterwards. My dad was in the dugout making the lineups, and he was throwing batting practice. And, it's how lucky am I, right? It's amazing.
Why do you think Weeblos aren't talked about as much?
Gosh,
we talk about the Cub Scouts. We talk about the Girl Scouts. We talk about the Eagle Scouts. The Weeblos, they always get left out.
They're tweeners. That's part of the problem. They're right in between. It's
Is that the
awkward age.
The Jan Brady?
Yes, that's right.
Of the Cub Scouts?
Yeah. It's and they didn't even have their own uniform, so you had to wear your undersized Cub Scout uniform.
Did it ever say Weeblo? Because my brother was a Weeblo. Shout out to my brother.
I think it had like a paw or something on the.
Did you ever put that on a resume?
No.
I think you should. So we should add to best-selling author when you speak. Like this morning, if I would have heard Weeblo, I would have. You would have brought down the house, John.
Oh mercy! I don't think I've said Weeblo in 50 years.
I would like to seek out some of the highest level Weeblos, like that are now CEOs or now founders.
Okay, I'm on that. I will pull that up. No, I don't, but I will before I get in the car to go back to the hotel. So we could say
that you're one of the top Weeblo best-selling authors in the hospitality industry.
It'd have to be knowingly, because I truly don't know any others. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure that probably AI will tell us. Top Weeblos.
Take me to
Wait. Had you heard of Weeblos before I just said that?
Yes, my brother was a Weeblo, and he Rob Cardenas. He's one of the top attorneys in Las Vegas, Cardenas Law Group.
Yep.
And he had, the little car derby that they would do.
Yeah, the Pine Box.
The Pine Box.
Yep.
You mentioned that earlier.
Yep.
My mom helped him, and it was beautiful. His was like sparkly blue, all the stuff, but she didn't know about the weights.
Yes, right.
Tell us about the weights.
Ultra important.
Tell us about the weights.
So the weights are the key to speed, right? So it's anything that you do with weight and velocity, and I'm certainly not into physics, but I know that if you weigh too much and you jump out of an airplane, you have to have what they call a little trailer that they throw out to slow you down.
That's what the trailer is, because you're big boned?
You'll get maximum velocity too fast, and you will have a problem.
Wow.
So same thing. I can't believe I'm talking about Pine Box Derby. That's the same thing. And my grandfather and my dad were my crew support, and this thing had probably 9 or 10 coats of paint, and then varnish and shellac. And I think ultimately the race was more for them. I was more interested in the cotton candy and grabbing the peanuts, and they had this thing just perfect. And it was weighted from underneath, chiseled out just the perfect spot, and then put that weight up in there. And I remember where it was and how it was to be first place in the Pine Box Derby. It was amazing.
In the hospitality industry, what is the weights in the car? Because there's so many people in the hospitality industry that have the shellac. Yeah, they have the right design, but they don't have the weight to carry it long term and to be able to get the speed and sustain it.
What a great analogy. I think
And should every CEO of a hospitality company be a Weeblo?
I'll tell you, yes, they should. I think that's a great place because you're in between. You're at that awkward age of your life, and being a Weeblo is a great breeding ground for future leaders. I think it's resilience. I think you need to be very, very resilient to have as much success as you want. I also think, believe it or not, you need to be a generalist. I think if you're a generalist in the hotel business, it's nice to have experts and to surround yourself with experts. But for me, it was getting into being a bellman, really for one reason. A buddy of mine said, hey, this is a great place to make tips. And then I immediately found out that it was great interchanging and intermixing with customers and talking and doing that. And then I went to the front desk. And then you look at the hotel business, to me, it's like a city, right? So you've got your city manager or your mayor. That's the general manager, right? And then you have all these restaurants, and that's the food and beverage department. Then you have accounting, then you have marketing, then you have fine dining, and then you have wine, and you have all of these things. You can get 10 careers in one hotel and build up your resume. 10 years, have 10 different jobs, right? But you're in the hotel business. But you were maitre d', you were a captain, you were a bellman, you were a front desk clerk, you were a housekeeper, you were a houseman, right? You worked in the laundry. And eventually you're going to find something that you're good at and that someone's willing to pay you for.
Yeah.
And if you can double back with that and you absolutely love it, glory be to God. You're on your way.
Take me back to Pop, because I find that things go full circle, right? So you'll learn something as a kid when he's coaching your football or basketball, or he's at a game, or he tells you something on the side while you're driving home after he works as many hours as he did. Yeah. And it doesn't land. Yeah. Until later on, you're in your industry, you're in your groove, and then you do something and you realize that's what my pop taught me. What were some of those moments?
He taught me from the point that I could understand what he was saying, and then he finally shortened it down to an acronym. But whether I was going to work or going for a drive or doing something semi-ridiculous, jumping out of a plane or, riding a motorcycle, he would always tell me, CS. It's all I want you to do. The only thing I want you to promise me, stay out as long as you want, although I'll tell you nothing great happens after midnight. And I think one of the things I talked about today, my dad was like, it's the first 10 years of what you do is going to make you who you are in the business. And then the next 10 years, it's who you know. So treat those people right. But the CS always came back to common sense. Mm. And, my mom still says it to me. I went out the door of her house last week and she said, CS, just use a little CS with whatever you're doing. And I was traveling and getting to come do this. And so that was something that sticks with me for sure.
What about a lesson from your mom, like that, maybe a moment that you haven't shared with a lot of people that, I remember there was one for myself where when we were 13 years old, my mom would take us to Sizzler.
Yeah.
And that was the big thing. When you turned 13, you got to go to Sizzler. You got to get the all-you-can-eat shrimp.
Malibu
we were
chicken, brother.
We were looking for. We didn't go Malibu. We went all-you-can-eat shrimp, John.
Oh, I love it. Okay.
I didn't mention any chicken.
Well, you're the one that went for fries. You went fries instead of tacos.
Hey, man, I was going to the all-you-can-eat shrimp Sizzler. Shout out.
Yeah, right on.
They're actually a sponsor of the podcast, too.
Right
wanted to let Sizzler know. Big Sizzler fan. That's how I impressed my wife.
Right on.
But that was a time. And then I remember my mom, when we went on my 13th birthday, all I wanted was a water gun that was battery powered, and it was a Uzi. And she okayed
that sounds
this.
So illegal.
So
water
Uzi,
with current that looks like a real gun.
Yes.
Wow.
And then all you can eat shrimp from the
Did
Sizzler.
Did she go for that?
She did. And she let it happen. And I remember that moment. I could see it right now. I could see us going into the parking lot. I can remember saying, all I want is this water machine gun Uzi, Mama. And she did. And that memory, I've actually never shared that with anybody.
That's fantastic.
So now,
I love it, man.
Tell me
so let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
You've got a great base of family and kids. Would you honor that request from one of your kids? And if so, which one would you and which one wouldn't you? Because I know that matters.
I probably would go Sizzler right now. I would do it. Water gun Uzi. Living in Carlsbad, I think we're good.
Okay.
Like we're okay.
Yeah, you're right.
You know, and living in Wonderland like we do.
Yeah. And you'd have some parameters. Can't take it out after 9. Can't take it to
Nick
school
has
in your
no
backpack.
parameters. His son has a motorcycle that goes 31 miles an hour.
What?
Yeah, and he's riding wheelies all around the neighborhood.
How old is he?
He is 13 years old.
Oh, mercy.
Oh, he's getting it.
Mercy.
And
hopefully he's wearing a helmet.
But what's sad about it is that every time that his son gets something, because Nick's son get everything that is the newest. He got the. Yeah. Have you ever seen these big red boots? Have you seen these things?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They're Mario Brothers boots.
Oh yeah.
But his son showed up to the basketball court with my son. He had the big red boots on.
And you're letting him promote this show?
Yeah, and Nick Horgan, like, he gets me because every new thing that hits, his son had on Travis Scott dunks. You know what Travis Scott dunks are?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah, he had them on while he was playing in the mud yesterday.
Unbelievable.
I don't want my son to see that because then he sees what's possible. When you hang out with Nick, you see what's possible.
Marcy must be out of town.
I think so. So take me back to Mama.
Yeah, so.
What was a
okay.
maybe that gave you a lesson too?
Quid pro quo. I'll tell a story I've never told. Mom, I'm sorry this is coming out in this podcast. I was an athlete growing up, as much as an athlete you can be in Little League, and probably got a little further in that sport because my dad did coach me and spend a lot of time with me. And so I give my dad the credit for the coaching and for getting me ready. I am ambidextrous because of my father. I'm left-handed. I pitch left-handed, but I would bat, left or right, and he just had it his way of doing that. But none of that matches up to tryouts when I was 12 years old. It was my last season in Little League, and you either tried out or you didn't try out, and if you didn't have a team to be associated with. My dad was the president of the league. He was the coach of the league, and 4 days before tryouts, her son came down with the chicken pox, and I had the chicken pox so bad, and she knew how important it was. So important, my mom let me go to tryouts with chicken pox. The most contagious disease of the time.
Yes.
And she went, I had a fever of 104 and probably 300 chicken pox and all of that white, whatever stuff is that you'd put all over your skin. Chamomile, yes. And so my mom let me go.
Calamine lotion.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, they sponsored the podcast too.
So I should, so that's, what kind of memory is that of your mom? But she said, you know what, son, this is important. You're going to go in, you stay away from all the kids, get in, do your batting and run the bases, and then you come home. And so my mom was a trooper.
What did you see her do that you've never told her that you saw her do that really impressed you? And when I say that, just give an example. My mom worked at the Medi Center in Lompoc, California. Yeah. When my parents split up for a little bit, we lived in a one-bedroom apartment. We had my two brothers. We had my brothers and I slept on the two single beds just on the floor, smashed together, but I had to sleep in the middle because I was the youngest. And my mom would work 16 to 18 hours. Yeah. She would sleep on the hide-a-bed, but most of the time she was so tired to take out the hide-a-bed that she would actually sleep on the couch.
Wow. Phenomenal.
So...
And you've never told her that?
I never did. I never got a chance. I never told her that I appreciated it. And, so it's one of those things that for me then... it created a non-excuse.
Yeah.
If I had to do something, if I had to push through whatever it was. What was some of that?
I have two things. One, I tell her all the time, and I didn't tell her when I was younger, but I tell her now, and I have her recreate many of these things. It's her cooking. I didn't appreciate her cooking growing up. I just ate it, and it was great, and I didn't know how much I loved it until I didn't have it. And but I love her cooking. She makes... the best tacos. She makes the best pork chops. She makes the best tuna casserole. Back in the day, the hamburger helper, I mean, even that tasted delicious. And probably a lot of it had to do because my mom was making it and I was super hungry and running around and burning calories. But I never turned down my mom's tuna, peas, and cheese salad that she makes. So that I now thank her for all the time. And that's special for me. One thing I probably never acknowledged to this day, and another... Wow, you're really good at getting out first from me. You're brutal, man. My mom's going to lock the door and not let me back in.
Mama, we love you. We love you so much. I can't wait to meet you. Can't wait to have your cooking.
Yep, right on. She every year, I mean, she had a big job raising my sister and I, and my dad had his hands full with these multiple jobs. I have the youngest parents in the world. I'm just going to say that. I'll tell you straight out.
How old were they when you had?
I knew you were going to say that. My mom was, God, I'm sorry, Mama. I'm sorry. My mom was 15.
Right on, mine too.
Yeah, and she was married to my father.
At 15.
Yeah.
Where were they living?
Southern California,
really?
Ontario. Yeah.
Wow.
My dad was 17.
Go Pop.
And until
Pop, what were you doing? Were you out of high school? Pop, was Pop out of high school or was he in high school?
And in those days, my mom would have been like a freshman or a sophomore, and they didn't let you go to school if you were with child.
Okay, so she was with child, and then
she had to go to night school. She had to go to the night school. I don't know. I tried to do the math, I was born in January. My mom was in August. It was close. And I was in a preemie. So I don't know. I was a big boy. Look at this dome. Hey, I mean,
That's a good dome.
So young parents, and it's been probably the biggest blessing of my life. People would be like, that had to be a disaster.
So your mom looks like your sister then.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Awesome. That happened a lot. When I was 16.
Did a lot of your friends try and pick up on your mom?
No, they tried to pick up on my sister.
How did that go? So I didn't have a sister, so I didn't have to worry about it. Who was the one guy that made you the maddest that tried to hit on your sister?
Are now going to turn all my friends on me too?
They're still around.
All right, so as long as he's not a sponsor of the show.
We got calamine lotion and Sizzler.
First names only. My very best friend was dating my sister for months without me knowing.
Whoa!
How is that?
Wow.
His name is Carlos. So
Carlos,
what? Carlos, what the heck?
So how did you find out? No, but
it was great. He was also one of my best friends. He was a great guy.
How'd you find out?
I'm not really sure. I think together they might have stole my mom's car one day.
Was she older or younger?
She's 4 years younger than me.
So you had to protect.
And Carlos is the same age.
Wow.
Yeah. And my sister is.
Could you take
she's
Carlos?
Amazing.
Do you think you could take him?
Oh, unquestionably.
Would you wrestle him or would you go blows?
I'd probably choke him out.
Okay, you go headlock. Would
yeah.
you go rear
I didn't know anything about an arm bar back in those days.
Would you go rear naked choke?
Yeah. You know what I did do to him once that I'm not proud of, but if you remember back in those days, they had something called lawn darts.
Yes.
I mean, how illegal.
Why shouldn't they?
Lawn darts.
Why should they outlaw those? My uncle
I don't think you can get them anymore.
I know. They outlawed them. Where you would throw it up in the air.
And try to get it in a little circle.
Awesome.
We used to do a deal, and I would make Carlos run, and I'd say 5, 4, and he'd have to run, and I'd throw it, and he'd have to be out of the zone.
That's why they got outlawed. It's because of you, John.
That's why I went out with my sister.
The joy of my childhood is gone because of John Elston. I had no idea.
That's why he went out with my sister, because I caught him with a lawn dart in the back of the calf. And that's when I realized at this young age that your blood pumps from your heart, because every time his heart pumped.
No way.
Yeah.
Did it stick right in? Did it stay?
Oh, yeah, it stayed.
It stayed, and he was running with
I think he took it out. He didn't make it far. He wasn't running nowhere.
Oh, my gosh.
He went down.
And they weren't that sharp. So that was, they weren't that sharp. I remember them.
Yeah.
So that had to hit hard.
Yeah, I threw it pretty good. And so, yeah, I would take him down. But he's a good guy. And I haven't.
Good dude. You still hang out with him?
No, haven't seen him in a long, long time. But I'm going to make sure he gets a.
Has he been hanging with your sister since?
No. No. I forget how we got on this subject. Oh, I didn't tell you what I appreciated about my mom. No one wants to hear this.
Yes, they do.
No.
They want to know John.
My mom, every Christmas, would not come home at night, and I couldn't figure it out. Every Christmas from about Thanksgiving until 3 days after Christmas, my sister and I and my dad never saw my mom. Until one day my dad took me out Christmas shopping, and I think I had $7 to go buy Christmas gifts for my mom and my dad. And the crazy thing is I remember that year exactly what I bought. It was a napkin holder made out of wood, and it stood up kind of like you'd see a taco would go in or napkins would go in. But I bought it for them to put their bills in, because that's what I remember, the bills, around the table and stuff, and they used that napkin holder for their bills. Long story short, we went into J.C. Penney's, and there was my mom working at J.C. Penney's. And she did it every Christmas. After that, it was that, and that's how they got Christmas money, to buy our gifts. My dad worked hard, 2 jobs. He'd come home. My mom would disappear and drive the car to J.C. Penney's, and she would work. And that was the Christmas money. So I love you for that, Mom. I never told her that. I never told her that that's just something that sticks with me.
Yeah. I want you to understand when I say this word, I always like to, I want you to understand what it means. When I say that you're wildly successful, it has nothing to do with finances. And the reason why I say this is because when I was introduced to you from Nick online, I saw the picture, your smile comes through the picture, but then meeting you in person, the joy and the ease, you make things simple. You make things easy. You made the room today completely almost diffused, and you weren't coming at them with a power like ramming it down their throat. Yeah. You almost drew the audience to you with your tone, with the cadence, with all those things. Where did you learn that? And then follow up with, you're a wildly successful dude. What was the first thing that you did for your parents when you started to experience the type of success that you guys weren't able to experience when you were a kid?
Yeah. Wow. Okay. 2-part question. What was the first part?
The first part is how did you work that muscle?
Yeah.
To be able to draw an audience in as opposed to try and press on them.
Wow, that's a great question. There's many things I don't do well. There's many things I still struggle at. And it's some of the basic things in life. And I can remember when my parents figured out that I had something just not exactly right and that I was not excelling at school in the studies as quickly as other kids. And it wasn't until I was in my 40s that I actually got diagnosed with ADHD, and then self-diagnosed for a long time with dyslexia. And so what I have found professionally first, that having the dyslexia and not being able to type and reading backwards and doing a lot of things that are challenging for me in the hotel business, I was able to surround myself with people that were much better at all of those things that I needed to do. So doing the financial statements, doing the accounting, doing the math, writing the SOPs and all of those things. And I think over the years from about 5th grade all the way up to running hotels, I made up for it with my ability to communicate and my ability to reason and my ability to befriend and to bring energy to the game. That's probably the biggest thing, is I bring energy to the game, and then that just brings down a lot of defenses. So there's those learning disabilities and things that I still deal with today. I did the little exercise for you guys today, and I realized when I tried to wash this off my hand, I literally wrote the room number backwards on my hand.
Did you?
Yeah. And, I've got a couple tattoos that I get put on backwards so that I can read them myself and understand what they mean. But yeah, that's probably it, is shortcomings have led for me to build other strengths. And I'm just so grateful that those strengths are my ability to get along and have fun and get things done.
Before you answer that next question, just a sidebar, talk to a kid that maybe is having learning disabilities right now and is thinking that, when I say this, you're going to say, and I want you guys all to, if you're watching, I want you to watch John's reaction because he's going to deflect it. But in your industry, in the hospitality industry, you're the Michael Jordan in that industry. Oh, I saw you deflect it, and I told you you're going to deflect it. You already deflected it, right? But you are that, and you just said, I just heard you on an interview just a second ago, talking to Nick Horgan, and he talked about your successes. You were like, but you didn't mention all the things I screwed up on. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So what would you say to a kid who's maybe battling with it or struggling with it, where they're not reading as well right now? Mm-hmm. Maybe they're traditionally having a little bit of a challenge, but here's a guy sitting in front of me that's saying that, but also has experienced things that most people will never experience in 10 lifetimes.
Yeah. I think find strengths in the things that you do right and that you do well. Continue to improve those while acknowledging, and I didn't do this. I'm now talking to my younger self, right? I did figure out what I was good at, and sometimes it was dodgeball, and sometimes it was kill the guy with the ball, and sometimes it was all of those things, but it wasn't the spelling bee, right? It wasn't algebra, mathematics. So I learned to pick up a lot of things from visual cues. I still, people say, how many books did you read this year? And I'll maybe do one or two where I actually read, but I devour magazines. I devour visual content. And it sounds silly, and I know people are going to say, oh, you don't read the Wall Street Journal or the Post, or I love the USA Today because I'm a visual learner. And I learned at learning visual. And so back to your point, if I'm that kid, find out what makes you feel good. What are you better at? Use that to help other people, and people will help you with your weaknesses. Wow. Yeah.
So what was the over-the-top thing that you were able to do for your parents, to have them experience something?
Man, it was hard to do anything for my father. So hard.
Because he didn't accept it?
No, because I became the master of getting up from the table, pretending like I had to go to the bathroom to get the check. And it didn't matter. It didn't matter if I made 2, 3, 4, 10 times more than him that year or that day. My dad was taking care of us. And so I wish I could say I took him on a bunch of vacations, but my dad would find a way of saying yes, having me write a check, and then me finding the check 10 years later in his sock drawer, right? Like that's how it went down. So finally I did, and this is crazy because it still hangs in the family room of my mom and dad's house. I bought him a plasma TV. And
those things were heavy.
They were heavy, and they were expensive, and they were beautiful.
Yes.
Right? I mean, 4 inches thick and about 300 pounds.
That was awesome.
And then by those standards, I think it's a 42-inch TV or maybe even smaller. Did you have to
put like a truss in?
I had to get a guy. I had to get somebody to come hook them up. They really are heavy.
I remember them.
And those were that was a half a year's bonus check back in the day, right? To do that. And I don't even think it had the best picture, but my father refused to take it down, right? It now has secondary speakers that they've got, my mom's got set up. But that was probably the first thing that I can remember was, Dad, stop hitting that TV downstairs on the side to get it to work. You've got a brand new plaza downstairs that's plasma.
Did you ever have to call your parents and explain technology over the phone, like how to actually use it? Have you had this challenge?
Well, I have the challenge of not being great at technology, and I think today's presentation was part of that. I couldn't get the thing completely sunk up, and I think I get that from my parents.
Word? Would that be it?
No,
would it be
sunk is not a word.
Sunk?
Synced.
Where would it be? Would it be synced? I don't know. That was just...
And I see something spelled S-Y-N, something synced. I don't know. It's kind of in my head.
Is it S-Y?
S-Y, yeah.
I was going the other way, but that would have been the actual
sync,
water.
S-I-N-K. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's my...
I am so bad, and I know you are so good because I'm in this studio, and I'm blown away when you said, I taught myself, I've got all this stuff, and for the audience, there are multiple cameras around the room. He's got a foot pedal here where he's controlling those cameras while he's talking to me into these microphones. I don't do that well, so no, I would never teach anybody technology. Not like that.
Talk to me about resilience. You mentioned the word a couple of times, but I think it's one of those words that no one really tells you how to do it. Like I remember hearing from my parents, like, don't be stupid. And then I was like, well, okay, so explain stupid to me then. Like no one explains stupid. No one explains to you dumb. Yeah. They just say, don't do dumb things.
Right.
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 And so when you hear of resilience, how do you build that? How did you build it?
I was probably building it and didn't know I was doing it. Right. But I definitely kept getting up. Right. I didn't get the MVP award on the football team, but I got the most inspirational. Right. So I don't know, as a football player, being most inspirational is probably not at the top of the treasure chest list.
Is that MIP?
MIP?
Most inspirational
most
player?
inspirational, yeah.
I got the MIP.
Yeah, MIP.
Have you put that on your resume?
No, I haven't.
You should do Weeblo, MIP. That would freak people out.
It got me into the Hall of Fame. Still in that high school 40 years later, my name is up there. Most inspirational.
That's awesome.
But
when did you get inducted to the Hall of Fame of your high school?
1981.
What was your acceptance speech?
There was no acceptance speech. No.
They didn't have you speak in front of you?
No.
Do you have that on your resume?
No, I don't.
Why?
You need to be in the resume business.
I just need to be your Don King.
It's so funny because you know what I'm supposed to be doing right now, and I committed to doing it, but this was going to be more fun, is a client that has hired me to speak is pushing me for a bio, right? And you say, oh, you're going to deflect this. I know this. And on the way here, she sent me a note and said, I absolutely need your full bio to put it on our website. And I'm like, man, I the bio part of it. And I'm not as humble as most people think. I like to talk about what I've done and how I can do things and how I can help. But the bio and the resume thing, Nick knows more about what I've done and how good it's been than I can even remember. And that is something that I'm so appreciative of and grateful for. When people talk about you that way, far better than me putting it on my resume. Far better to hear it from you guys.
Let's talk about the apex predator part because I saw that in you. You didn't talk about it, but I saw it in you. I saw it in you, and it turned on at certain times during the day when you were talking. There's that Jordan part. You even bit your lip right there because you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's a place where you turn on where, like, literally, they talk about it with the Mamba mentality. I wasn't as much of a Kobe fan. I'm more of a Jordan fan. But there's that switch.
Yeah.
And right now, that switch just turned because we started talking about it. I can see it in you. Talk about that switch, and how did you learn to control it? Because early on, sometimes it can hurt people.
Yeah. I don't think I control it as well as I should still.
Is it only directed towards hospitality for you?
No. It's I'm stubborn, right? I've met a lot of people that tell me they're the most competitive person themselves that they've ever met. And what do I want to do? I immediately want to challenge that, right? In some way, pinky wrestling, thumb wrestling, backflips. I don't know. Won't be bowling because I'll lose that challenge for sure.
You'll probably beat me in that one, man.
But I don't do a great job of it. My defense mechanisms when backed against the wall is also probably I use a strength, right? If you are good at using a weapon, you want to use that weapon. And when you're good at, if you're a great eater and you can win a contest, then you're going to eat people into the ground. And I have a tendency to probably try to get smart and talking my way out of things or arguing verbally. And that competitiveness comes in because I don't like to lose.
Yeah.
Even if it's like, hey, honey, will you take out the trash? And I say, yes, I didn't know the trash was supposed to be taken out that moment. So then when challenged, instead of just getting up and doing it, I say, you didn't tell me to take it out right then. You're not winning that. You're not winning that argument, right? I know not to put food back in the refrigerator that only has this much left in it, but I'll still argue and make my point of why. And it makes sense to me. I believe I know why that half a meatball got put back in the fridge, and there's a reason for it. So that's probably something I need to continue to work on. And I have gotten better at it. But
one of the inspiring things, sitting with you I got to hear you speak today for a little over an hour. And one of the things was you don't accept the Scottie Pippen role. And that's what I took from it. Now, not everyone's okay with that. Not everyone who wants to be a Jordan is a Jordan. Yeah. There's some people that want to play the Jordan role that can't play it. Take us to the hotel with the ironing boards and the irons. And you told a story, but there's the flip side of that most likely you got a little bit of resistance. When you step up to be Jordan, not everyone's willing to be Pippen.
Yeah.
And in that situation, you weren't willing to be Scottie Pippen.
Yeah, no, I wasn't. And I know exactly what you're saying. And this was this self-adoption of a policy or a way to do things that one wasn't making the bellman, my coworkers and peers, as much money as they could. It wasn't taking care of the guest and servicing them, but they proposed, a self-rotation, right? So we would take turns answering the phone, and we had a little check marks. So, whoever answered the phone got that call. And it shouldn't have been that way. We should have separated. I called it the penalty box because the bellman looked like the penalty box in a hockey game, and we'd all stand in that penalty box, take our turns answering the phone. And if it was an iron and board running call, the other bellman, the veterans, the senior people over me, didn't want to do it because it was at best $1 tip. They wanted the $5 or $10, luggage run or the airport run or those types of things. And so I kind of did it without their knowledge, right? Like I was the first one to go to human resources and say, I need a second uniform. They said, no, you can't have a second uniform. Why? I said, look at me. I'm drenched in sweat. I need to be able to change. So it was kind of that Jordan switch the jersey, get back in the game. And to be honest, I kind of did it as kind of a juke to the other bellmen. So they didn't, I changed in my car. I didn't hang it in the bell closet with the rest of the uniforms because I didn't want them to see me sweating it out. They just thought people weren't tipping anymore. And I was taking care of the guest. I was making more money. I was having a blast, and I'd figured out how to take advantage of the system. So
when you deal with resistance, you said something that don't allow the company and the company's policies to interfere with what the guest wants.
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing. I probably killed it there. But you said that, and it just, I was like,
yeah.
I mean, it really, I had to stop. I mean, I wrote that. I probably wrote it wrong.
Yeah.
And I added right afterwards, like, get all you can eat shrimp, Weeblo, MIP. I wrote those in too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I remember it very specifically what we talked about today. I put under the caption of don't take yourself too seriously and don't take your brand too seriously. And I'm already doing it. I'm a bit of a hypocrite because I have friends who want pink hats with black logos and they want to put it on this and that. And it's what they want. It's their favorite color and they want to do it that way. And I've said, no, this is a brand and this is a standard. Mm-hmm. And I think about it, would I be better off them walking around advertising and marketing the brand with a great quality hat that's the color that they want? I'm breaking my own rule. I'm taking myself too seriously. No one cares what color that hat is except for the person wearing it. And I see a lot of companies, many in the most recent one that I worked for, and with the people there, it was a healthy, kind, and green, sustainable company. And so we were very cautious about not greenwashing and about doing all the right things that were in line with the brand. And nothing gets a great company and great leadership, but it wasn't always what was best for the customer. And sometimes when you're in charge and you get to make those decisions, you rush to the decision of what you think is best for the brand. And the last time I checked, brands aren't paying the bills, right? So I think that's where I say take your work seriously, take your job seriously, take the people you work with seriously, and always step in and help them out. But don't take it so seriously that you actually stifle the growth.
What was the next thing that when you did the ironing boards and the irons, adding them to the rooms, and then going to the management and saying, "Hey, we need to buy more." Yeah. They said we didn't have any. You just went and bought them yourself. Then you started making this money. What was another stage that's some James Bond stuff right there? You know what I mean?
Well, to me, you know what it was? CS. It's common sense. Where did I get that? From my dad. Right? So my dad said common sense. That seemed like common sense to me.
Yeah.
And you know, what happens in the hotel business happened with the iron and boards, and it continues to happen to this day, is people travel and they want their stay, their bed, their pillow, their TV, their air conditioner to be like at home. They want it to be residential. And when hotels started making stays residential, right, irons and boards ended up in every room. Every room has an iron and board right now, right?
Yeah.
Every room has 4 pillows. Most hotels, 4 pillows where you could choose from, foam or feather or that kind of thing. And so as the hospitality industry became more residential, flat screen TVs. I mean, there are plenty of still box TVs, and how many times have we been in a hotel that's taken up all the counter space with a box TV? And think about all those things. Where were they first? At home, right? So those kind of things don't happen often where you are revolutionizing the hotel business. But when they do, they go. And, I've never met the man face to face, but I admire him. And, Barry Sternlick with Starwood is one of my heroes in this business because he was always focused on the experience of the guest. And he did something very simple, but no one would ever do, from the Marriotts and the Hiltons and the Holiday Inns, the rest of them. Where do people spend most of the time when they get to their room? In the bed. How do they feel in the morning if they sleep good? They feel great. If the bacon's not quite hot or the eggs are a little undercooked, if they had a good night's sleep, you're most likely going to get that guest back. So Barry invented the heavenly bed, right? And it is the heavenly bed. And then what happened? It worked. And then now everybody has their equivalent of the heavenly bed, and it's now the most expensive fixture or furniture in any guest room is the bed. So those kind of things, you know, I don't get credit, and I don't want the credit for putting irons and boards in every room. But opportunistically, I could see that was a demand, and that was something that was easy to do, and it benefited the guest, it benefited me, benefited the hotel, and so it was a no-brainer.
What was the next thing that you saw that most people don't talk about? Because like with that, when you were telling me about that, I was thinking in my head, well, we didn't stay in many hotels growing up, and we stayed in motels, but to have an ironing board and an iron, now my kids wouldn't even think twice about that. But I'm sitting in front of a guy who, I mean, you were on the forefront of that.
Unfortunately, I was way back in the day.
You're the Michael Jordan of ironing boards.
Hair dryers.
Have you ever heard that?
You know,
have you heard that?
No, but I hope he watches this.
Hey,
does he sponsor this podcast as well?
Michael Jordan of you, John. You're the Michael Jordan of ironing boards and irons.
Absolutely. I will take that, and I'm going to put that on my resume.
There we go.
I'm learning.
She's getting the bio right after this.
Right on. That's good. Sherry, it's coming, I promise.
Yes. So the blow dryers, you said, tell me about
blow dryers, just thinking back to what we delivered, and, you know, blow dryers are hard to track down, and people could walk out with them. And, I mean, you can't go to a hotel, I don't care which level, and there's a blow dryer there. Might be hidden away.
You know what should be in them, and I bet you can make it happen.
What? Tell me.
Right downstairs, we have a studio. There's a thing called a freestyle blow dryer. My friend Blair built it and invented it and patented it. I told him it's not for the professional beauty industry. It's for luxury hotels. It hangs from the ceiling. When you pull it down, it turns on. When you release it back up, it sits. And they have a retractable one where it'll actually go into the ceiling and completely disappear. There's a remote that you can press, and the blow dryer will drop from the ceiling. It takes all the weight out, and the woman can blow dry her hair, literally pulling it down, turn on. And if it was in every luxury hotel, it would be in every luxury home.
Shark Tank that baby, patent it up, Shark Tank it.
It's already patented.
Oh, it is.
He just went towards one industry.
Yeah.
But I was telling him about the luxury, you know, that part. What do you see right now?
Yeah.
With all of the luxury that we have, do you see an ironing board and an iron missing right now? Or would you even tell us? Because if
no, I would tell you, of course. I think that I'm convinced that we need to be better stewards of sustainability in hotels. And I don't think that there's a lot of attention paid to it, but I think that there are some efforts that could be made towards sustainability that were just standards and wastes of paper or products or plastics. One-time use plastics drive me nuts. Right? And they're not the cheapest anymore. But go to get a cup of coffee and you've got 75 carnation little plastic one-use creamers floating in watery ice. Still a lot of that going on. So I think there's some advances there. I think there's some advances with energy and the way that, and also if I go and spend $400 or $500 for a room and I want to turn the air down to 61 degrees and leave and go to the gym and come back to a cold room, I'm not saying it needs to go to the degree where a lot of hotels have made the air go off. So with lack of motion or a key not in a slot in the door, the air shuts off. I think the guest needs to be responsible, right, for that. But I think they should also have the option. And I think we've kind of swung the pendulum has swung too far one way, and it needs to swing back. And there's other areas that, these stand caps, we call them stand caps. Those are the little things that go over the top of the glasses, right? Obviously, they're for sustainability. You used to be a full, I probably can't say this on the podcast, but it was a glass condom.
You can say whatever.
Right, and we put them on remote controls because then they knew that we cleaned those, or they believed that, they were cleaned. And now they got the stand caps, and you just look at all that waste. It doesn't mean that the glass is clean because it has a cap over the top of it. And doilies, right? Like who needs their lemons sitting on a white doily on a plate in the restaurant? It just goes on and on. And so there's a bunch of things. There's a lot of opportunity.
Can you stay at a hotel and enjoy, or are you evaluating?
Both.
Can you turn it off?
Both. No.
You can't.
And I don't really want to. I mean, I had an incredible experience. I will give them a super plug. The Park Hyatt here, the Aviara, I think.
Yeah.
Man, from the gentleman at the valet who's worked there for 27 years, who opened my door for me, to the concierge that I walked by and made eye contact, to the engineer that was walking by with his tool belt, made eye contact, all the way to the front desk, to the desk clerk who said, you know, Mr. Elston, your room is not ready. And I said, no problem. I'll wait. And we engaged in conversation. Her head was on a pivot. It wasn't down. She was looking and engaging with me. And I said, no problem. I'll wait. Where can I go sit? And she said, you know, I have a better idea. We have a suite available. Always happens when I'm alone and not traveling with family or friends or wife or whatever, you know. And she said, I'm going to upgrade you to a suite. And so now I'm in this really big room that's, you know, I had to take a video when I walked in because I'm a hotel guy and count the towels and see if the hangers were 2 fingers apart in the closet. I can let that stuff go.
Okay.
I used to do that.
Yeah.
I used to get in the bathtub when I was running hotels and sit in the bathtub with no water, with all my clothes on, and see what the guests saw. What does a guest see when you sit in the toilet? It's like being a medium-sized dog, right? Because you're down low and you're looking around, and what do you see? Dirty pipes, dirty elbows underneath the sinks. You see where housekeepers are putting a roll of toilet paper so that they don't have to go back to the cart, storing that there. I mean, so I can let that stuff go. I know it doesn't sound like I can, but I do. I let that go now and just try to enjoy.
Talk to me about the humility side, because some people have, you know, a humility or sometimes a false humility. Yeah. You've got the apex part of it. We talked about the Jordan side of it, but it intrigued me too, because a lot of times a Michael Jordan like yourself in your industry and a master at your craft, collaboration sometimes escapes them.
Yeah.
When you started Wild Heart, a part of Wild Heart is unreasonable hospitality.
Yeah, that's right.
How important is aligning yourself and utilizing something that way? Because some people, their ego would tell them, no, I just got to go make my own.
Yeah. It's not even, I totally get it. And I think that there is certainly part of that. And that's what makes most successful companies go, is there does have to be a responsible person. Okay. There has to be someone at the end of the day that takes responsibility for the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I often think that's an excuse that CEOs use when they're making a decision that's unpopular, is they have a tendency to say, you know, everything is on me and I'm responsible and therefore I'm sticking to this. And that's only something you learn and change in yourself after working for somebody who abuses that, right? And we've all had amazing bosses. We've had bad bosses. We've had ones mediocre in between. We don't even remember their names, but we remember the ones that weren't so good. And I think for me, I try to remember how that made me feel working for that type of individual. I did it today in the last podcast I was on. I was constantly thinking and interrupting, and I was already wanting to say something to counter back or to enjoy and laugh about. And it's probably one of my biggest challenges is to, you know, and it's not the bravado or the ego, I don't think. It's wanting to participate and being excited, right? And one thing I admire about you, Kelly, I've seen so many of your episodes, is the pause. That's really awkward for me. That is so flipping awkward, right? And maybe because it's so awkward, I get the reverse goosebumps, right? So you get those goosebumps that are so great and it feels, you're like, yeah, I mean, I can feel it on my head right now, making my cap tighter because it's awkward. So I think some of that comes off as ego because you're interrupting or because you are the boss or because you've asked someone to come or they're obligated or you're paying them. But I am unequivocally, I think there's 2 types of coaches. I think there's 2 types of leaders, and those that can blend both. I am definitely a player's coach. I'm a player's leader. And sometimes there's an owner's coach. And that owner's coach, we know you're a big, huge football fan. We can name owner's coach that coach for the owner, and that's who pays the team. And, you know, they're not really liked in the locker rooms. And both are hard to do. Both are hard. But I'm a player's coach, so I like consensus. I like people owning part of my decision, and I like going with other people's decision for accountability purposes mostly, besides the fact that they're mostly right and their idea is better and that they have a talent that I don't bring to the table.
Yeah. So if my son was here, he's 13 years old, amazing kid, Maddox, I love you so much. Yeah. If he was sitting here and you had to explain Wild Heart to him, how would you do it?
13 years old? Mm-hmm. What grade is that, like 7th?
7th.
Yeah. I would say Maddox, right? Mm-hmm. Maddox, what do you like to do after school? He would probably pick something to eat, and he'd pick something to do outside. He'd pick something to do with his dad. And I would ask him, how much do you like it? What's your favorite thing? And he would tell me something along those same lines. And I would say, do you wish you could do more of that? Do you wish that you had more time? Do you wish that you could do those things more often? And if it was eating ice cream, he might say, yeah, I wish I could eat ice cream every day, or I wish I could play ball with my dad. What Wild Heart is going to do with the introduction of AI, it's going to give people back their most valuable asset, to do whatever they want with, to make more money, to sleep more, to stay on the phone more, to play more video games, to eat more pie, to do whatever they want to do. But if they get involved with what Wild Heart is doing with AI, they're going to get their number one asset, the most valuable thing they have back. And I think if you can teach kids that at any age, if you can teach adults that, you're going to change people's lives, because they'll realize that they have more time, and they can more time to play the guitar, more time to read, right? More time to cook, more time to go visit a friend or go see grandma and grandpa. So Wild Heart does that. And then I would say, who do you like to listen to most? Because he's probably at 13, he's watching sports, or he's reading the Bible, or he's going to church, or he's doing, something along that line. And I would encourage him that the other thing Wild Heart does is the team, we talk to people, and we talk about areas that we're passionate about and that we're good at, and that's what Wild Heart does, Maddox, is we tell people things that they want to learn. We provide business that, provide a technique in a business that gives you more time to do whatever you want. And if you figure out there's something that you want to do, Maddox, that you're not good at, we'll coach you. We'll teach you. We'll figure it out. That's what Wild Heart does.
Who would be the perfect person to not work with Wild Heart?
Perfect person not to work with Wild Heart.
Or company.
Nick Horgan. No, just kidding. Love Nicky. Perfect. Wow, you're so good at this. The perfect person not to work at Wild Heart.
Or with them. Like,
yeah.
As far as that should not hire you.
Someone that's satisfied. I know that sounds strange, but we do want to push the status quo. We do want to stay relevant. And when you're satisfied, it's hard to stay relevant, to stay up on things, because you don't think you need to, you don't want to.
Yeah.
So I think if you're satisfied with what you're doing, then you should keep doing it. You should stay with it. And if you're not satisfied and you want something else, then you should come to Wild Heart and do something else. Is that crazy?
That is amazing. So when I think of sports, you were talking about it earlier. I'm a big sports fan. You were talking about players coach. You were talking about an owner's coach. Let's talk about an organization and a culture, right? Yeah. So if you look at it, and I have two favorite teams.
Okay.
Houston Oilers, which now is the Tennessee Titans, and anyone who's playing the Dallas Cowboys.
Okay.
So if you're a Dallas Cowboy fan, we can still be friends, but you're always going to have hope at the first of the season. You're going to say, this is our year, and it's not going to happen ever.
Right.
But one of the major reasons is because the person who takes the interview, you know who I'm talking about.
Oh, totally, 1,000,000%.
When you have a culture like that doesn't allow for it. And then you look at a scenario my friend and I were talking about, well, say you take the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh Steelers in my lifetime have had 3 coaches.
Yeah, right.
Chuck Noll.
Yeah.
How am I missing the middle? Because it's the Weeblo. He's the Weeblo of coaches. Bill Cowher.
Bill Cowher. One of my favorites, actually.
Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, that's
3.
right.
And they have a pedigree.
Yeah.
Does that translate to the hospitality industry also?
Yeah, I mean, you just pick 3 players' coaches. They're players' coaches, right? Those players play for that coach. They win for that coach. They hurt when they lose for that coach. They probably cry in the locker room if they hear that coach is being dismissed.
But what about the organization? Because a lot of times, the other ones, they are constantly, like if you look at the Dallas Cowboys, they're constantly switching coaches.
Yeah.
Whereas the people who have sustainable success, they're not switching as much. Is that relatable?
Yeah, totally relatable. And I think there's positives to both sides. And one of the things that I believe in as a manager or a leader or being in charge of the output is you need to hire slow and you need to fire fast. Don't waste your team's time. It's an insult on you as a leader. Everybody knows, your A players know when you're keeping somebody that shouldn't be kept. And they know when you hire somebody that's wrong. And most of the time, you know that it's wrong. And you did it for some reason that isn't as important as making sure that you're strengthening the team. And so I believe fire fast. And I didn't always do that. The alpha apex side of me is something that grew stronger and stronger. But I would avoid conflict. I would make excuses to keep people. I would say, they're really going to know that they should have been fired by the time we have to let them go because they're giving them so many chances. Man, that's just a disastrous thing to do, in my opinion, in leadership. So hire slow, take your time, make sure that it's a good fit, make sure that, they're going to be appreciated. One of my favorite interview questions, I think it actually came from Jeff Bezos. I think he likes to ask everybody, let's jump forward 6 months. What is everybody on your team going to appreciate about you 6 months from now? And I love that question, and I love to hear the answer because it makes that individual think, and it allows me to know where's their sweet spot. What are they going to bring to the team that someone else says, why wait 6 months, right? Why wait 6 months to find out? So you ask that question, but I think hiring slow, firing fast.
Do you think that leadership, that you can build it, or do you have to draw it out?
Draw it out. What do you mean by draw it out?
That it's already in there.
Oh.
And you're drawing it out as opposed to, like, do you think anyone can be a leader? Do you have it and you're born with it, or can you develop it?
You can develop it. Unequivocally, you can develop it.
With anyone? Like I could take anyone off the street, hand them to John.
No.
Why?
Because I think as a leader, you only have a certain amount of stickiness to that individual. I think that it can become exhausting as a leader to overwork at that. And at the end of the day, it's the individual that makes themselves a leader. You're the guidepost, right? So you're the guidepost. You are giving them. I love to think it is, I love to try, now I can say this because I've done this for 40 years, I try to give back my 10,000 hours in a short period of time. And if that is respected and taken, man, I will promote that person up above me. I will partner with that individual because they're not satisfied and they do want to learn. And so I don't think you can do it with everybody because they need to do it themselves. Now, if you position the question that you have somebody that really wants to do this and they're willing to do whatever it takes within the law and within ethics and morals to do whatever they need to do, can you make anyone a leader? Yes, 1,000,000%. They're really making themselves a leader, and I get the credit at the end of the day. But I had a conversation with a woman today that I got to work with for 4 years. She left the company and went to another company, and I called her back and said, look, I need somebody at your caliber, and I'm not doing that dancing around the bush thing. I'm asking you, you are somebody that I can bring to the table that I know is going to deliver. And you never forget those people, and you keep them on a very short list, and you appreciate them because they're those people that you did help make a leader, but they did it themselves. It's cool.
So 40 years ago when you got in the hospitality industry, I'm pretty sure that fractional leadership, any of the C-suites, was not a thing.
Definitely not.
Okay. To a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of business owners, they don't even understand that concept. Even in the last couple of years, coming to terms with it and understanding it, it made so much sense, but you didn't know that it was available.
Right.
If you had to explain it to somebody that didn't understand, because it's literally like if I had a basketball team, which I'm a Warriors fan, so we don't need anybody.
Yeah.
I think we're the best.
Right
we're
on.
only in 6 right now. We're gonna do this thing. We're gonna end the year strong, and Steph's gonna get another championship.
Yep.
But if I was an NBA team and they said Steph can be on your team for 30 games a year, yes, you could also have. Well, I wouldn't take LeBron. You could also have, whoever it was, you could have Anthony Edwards on your team for 20 games.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. It's a great question. I'd immediately counter, okay? I would immediately counter and say, I want him for 60 games, but he's only going to play for 13 minutes. Now that's a winning strategy.
Wow.
That's a winning strategy. Get him for double the games. Get him for a third of the minutes.
Yes.
And let him put up his 28 points.
And the part that we're not talking about is the fact that in the event that you have Steph, now you're locked into a contract that is, everything.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this fractional leadership part of it, because that's a core of what Wild Heart is doing. Am I correct?
That's correct.
So this blew my mind today as I was, because getting to spend time with you, I got to spend an hour.
Yeah.
Changed my view.
Yeah.
It changed my view putting on your microphone today.
Why is that?
Because of how present you were with me.
Oh, that's kind.
Everyone shut down. We stepped outside.
Yeah.
You actually had a conversation with me. And a lot of times, a person that is doing what you're doing would, that menial task,
have to be in a zone or have to be, right?
All the stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But the fact that a person has the opportunity now, whether in the hospitality industry, is it outside the hospitality industry too, or is it focused
it's definitely outside.
That they would have the opportunity to work with John Elston blows my mind.
Oh, that's too kind. I'll tell you, it's very simple, and the thing that really got my attention was that it's a win-win situation. And when you get that win-win situation where you've got an executive or a leader, usually at the C-suite level, who has been to burnout level or is getting close to it or is sitting in the middle of that now, and they're not happy, they're not fulfilled, but they're gaining wealth monetarily. They're in a really big job getting paid well, but they're kind of at that, maybe they're 35, maybe they're 40, maybe they're 45 or 50. They're starting to realize that there's other things in life, right? But they just can't step away. And by the way, they love what they're doing. They're just burnt out on it. And what happens is you either go away completely or you get asked to go away because you've started to let down. And I haven't met anybody yet that's at the top of their game that I said, how would you like to make half of what you're making right now for 10 hours a week? I've had every call returned, every single call. And that's my email. Now, I am sending that email to just people I know, because I need to deploy people into businesses with confidence that I know who they are, right? Eventually that will have to change, and I'll have to come up with a strategy and a process to ferret out the type of talent that would be great at it, but I think I will. And then you go to that business owner and you tell the business owner, how would you like to have somebody on your team that can get as much done in 10 hours a day or 10 hours a week that somebody's spending 60 hours a week and that you're paying double? Now that's when it's like snake oil. And they're like, I'm not following you. Well, let me tell you, I know somebody that makes $300,000 a year. I'm going to give you her. She's going to come and be on your team and carry that title and assess your team and make decisions. And she's going to use our AI framework. She's going to use her 20 years of experience, and you are going to pay a third. No benefits, no vacation. That's what you're getting. And then they say, I want to try it out. I'll try it out. They try it out, and then the next thing they call me is, do you have someone that can do that like in a CFO position? Because the CMO is working great. Do you have someone that can do that in a commercial officer's position? Right? Because they're like, wow, all these years I've been paying X and not getting the results. Now I'm paying Y, right? Less money. Yes. And you know what? It's the real present leaders, the self-awareness leaders that get it and aren't selfish, because a lot of leaders just want somebody there. They just want someone there for 40, 50 hours, someone they can call on a weekend, someone that they can bog down with projects. These aren't those people, right? If you're only getting them for 10 hours a week, you're not going to put them in meetings with you for 8 of those 10. They're going to be doing the job. And so when you find a leader, and it's usually a smaller business, somewhere between the $10 and $50 million in total revenue, that acknowledges and gets it, right? And sometimes even smaller. You know, I've got a good friend that runs. He just retired. He sold his business to family, but he would have paid somebody to do his marketing. He runs one of the best franchise, economy blind businesses, and I talked to him and said, Gary, would you pay to have somebody to do this kind of work? I can't afford that person. No, I think I found a way for you to afford it. And I got a win-win. I've got a team member, right, that was working 60, 70 hours a week.
Yeah.
And guess what they can do? If they want to make the same amount of money they were doing, Kelly, they just take on 2 clients. Now they work 20 hours a week, and they're back to what they were making full-time. Not everybody can do that. You have to be the best at what you do, right? And you have to get results. But I'm so confident if you pick the right person to get into this fractional leadership role, that I don't mind signing a 60-day contract, a 90-day contract, because if I put the right person in the job, they're going to want more of those people. So right now, it's about quality, finding the right person, finding that person that's a little bit burnout, right? And just wants to spend more time with the family, wants to pick up another, hobby, and still be paid. Because right now the only other answer is I quit, I retire, I get back into it with another company and hope it's different. So I'm jacked up about it. I'm totally pumped. I think it's going to be great. What does it do for the company? They cut their overhead. And now sitting in board meetings and presentations with them are true C-class individuals, superstars. And the board or the shareholders or the clients are like, how did you get her? How did you get her on this team? Yeah, I'm a good leader, they say. And they are, because they make that decision. So I'm sure I'll get 1 or 2 that don't work, and I'll have to, refocus and adjust and make some changes. But you put together the right framework, and again, it's back to Wild Heart, because that framework is using AI and using that framework and maximizing it, coaching and teaching, and then most of those leads have come to people that I've spoken to. So the human touch and being in front of them, and they're like, wow. And it just right now, it's too soon. I'll come back in a year and I'll take Nick's producer job probably, because I'll need a job by then.
How do you marry the AI and the personal touch? Because you talked about that today, and it was great because you didn't just talk about it, but if you read between the lines and you watched you accomplished it. It was a masterful thing to watch.
Oh, I don't know.
So you utilized it,
yeah,
and you utilized examples of it,
yeah,
and which could freak some people out,
totally,
and especially in hospitality,
yeah.
And then you brought it back, so it was this dance that you did. I mean, that you did it. You're that good.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that. I was able to pick up body language, and I could kind of sense, the hair on the back of a couple necks going, is that on now? Or are we doing, and then I quickly said, no, this tool actually, if it was on, would audibilize, do we have permission? And then I mean, I'm going out of my way to try to gather information, but it's, in my opinion, it's going to be so accepted. Would you or anyone else have felt different if I was standing there with a legal pad, yellow pad, and I was writing, and I was, okay, oh yeah, let me write that down. That's super important. Oh yeah, what was that number again? And what time do we start? And what are we having for breakfast? And man, dinner was great last night. What's the name of that place? Let me write all this down. It's basically what you're doing, but you're doing it at the speed of light, and you're doing it with laser, right?
Yeah.
And then it's telling you what was important based on the way you trained it and what you wanted it to pick up on. I'll find out tonight how many times I said, oh, and, well, I'll ask it. And it will say, you did this. You were getting tired. You were losing, motivation, whatever it is. And for me, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. There's a lot of personal mental preparation that goes into it anyway, so I'm not feeling like I'm slacking.
When did you, was it a conscious decision for you to, because I don't know if you even see this, you probably do, but you're transforming from Jordan into Phil Jackson.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Was that a conscious decision?
Yes.
When was that?
6.5 weeks ago.
6.5 weeks.
Yeah.
What was did you sit down? Did you write it out? Did you map it? What'd you do?
I decided it was time to spend my energy elsewhere, that I was spending more energy and it was harder for me. Mm-hmm. So it's like an athlete getting older and realizing, or a boxer or a wrestler or anybody in a competitive field, like when it was time. I mean, I could still do it. I didn't want to do that. And maybe it's still too fresh. I probably hurting myself. If anybody ever watches the show, I'll never get hired to run another company for someone else. And you know what? That's okay. And I've never been okay with that. I've always felt like I was a generalist and I could make a lot of people a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And I have. And they've in turn, most of the time made sure I made some money and had a good time. But I'm enjoying now really, 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 really what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Really enjoying it. And a lot of that is because, Phil Jackson had a really hard job, right? It was a tough job.
I mean, he's coaching the best in the world.
The best in the world with a lot of responsibility. And I don't mean this, maybe it's the physicality of it. He didn't work as hard as Michael did. He didn't work as when Michael went to the Wizards. Michael was still in between the corner at halftime. He's on the exercise bike and he's stretching and he's working. When he went to play baseball, he was grinding and he was trying to figure out how to hit the curveball. And he didn't do that. Now, why do so many players, Kelly, at that level that have that GOAT status, not go into coaching? I expect it just going to happen, right? Like. Mm-hmm. You look at Tom Brady and what he's doing. I mean, I can't wait to turn on TV and hear the wisdom come out of that guy's mouth, right? Because one, he's very elegant. He's very well spoken. He's the best quarterback arguably, I guess, but not too much argument, to ever play the game. Maybe he will coach, but he's taken that other route.
Yeah.
I've moved into that coaching and mentor, and it's less work. That's just the bottom line.
What's the difference in the type of muscles? I was talking with my buddy the other day. His name is Eric Strickland. So he was Mr. Football, Mr. Baseball, and Mr. Basketball in Nebraska in high school, which is a major thing.
Yeah.
He got drafted in the MLB. He got drafted in the NFL, and he went as a free agent in the NBA.
Wow.
So he had his choice with a collective bargaining agreement. He chose the NBA because it was better for him as far as financially. Mm-hmm. But I was talking with him. I had him talk to my son the other day that baseball was good for basketball. Basketball was good for football because it trained different muscles.
Yeah.
What different muscles are you having to work right now to go into the Phil Jackson that you, and which ones are you eliminating that you were when you were the Michael Jordan?
Wow. It's kind of a fairly new term, I think, but there's a difference between being a solopreneur and being an entrepreneur. Right? solopreneur is exactly what it is. And when you've built your entire career and your trajectory around your number one thing is building teams and surrounding yourself with better people, and now you're by yourself, you better figure out how to work a spreadsheet. You better figure out, how to do these other things that I was so fortunate in the hotel business, and I still consider myself in the hotel business. Yeah. But I had a team, and I brought something different to the table for them. But I don't find myself doing a lot of self-talk, motivating myself right now like I would be doing or inspiring others. So it's a different muscle for me right now to realize that no one is coming to save me. No one's coming. People will come and love me. I have a lot of love in my life. Great core group of friends, but no one's coming to save me professionally. You know what I'm saying? And when you're part of a team, you fall down, someone is picking your ass up. Yeah. Now I'm picking my own ass up. So that's a different flex. That's a different, twitch muscle in that category. So that's what I'm doing.
Who gives you an unfair advantage in your life? Like, I'll give you an example. I was talking to my brother this morning. Having my brother Rob, he gives me an unfair advantage from an encouragement standpoint.
Yeah.
I just had something happen to me yesterday, which was so awesome, and I got to share it with him, and then he just dropped an F-bomb on me and was like, I'm so effing proud of you yesterday. And it was like, yes, I'm going to be with him tomorrow, which is my dad's birthday. Being with him, literally unfair advantage. And it's not just in a lofty love type of situation. Yeah. It's like, I mean, we're going to win. Like, we're going to win. When I'm with him, we're going to win. Right. Who gives you
it's unequivocal. It's such an easy answer. My wife. She does that. When she does a lot of things that I don't want to do, that I'm not good at doing, and that if I had to do them, I'd be doing a lot less of what I really love doing. It would be very, very hard to be a solopreneur and putting up with myself, to be honest. I work better. I think it's crazy, I work better when you wake up and whether it's a housekeeper coming to clean or the house is clean or the car is clean, I feel better when I have a clean car. Right? Or that I know I just got the oil changed. There's nothing really noticeable about it. But when she's taking care of me and I'm taking care of her and we know what our roles are, and we don't mind stepping in and helping out, but she takes care of so much stuff that if I had to do it, I promise you I would not have a chance at being successful. It's crazy. I don't know, but that's it works. So we're partners in crime.
What does she not hear enough from you?
She doesn't speak English. No, just kidding. She speaks such great English after 7 years of being together. Would she not hear enough? She probably doesn't hear enough that things are going to be okay. Which means I don't hear it enough. It's kind of like being satisfied, right? It's not the easiest person to live with all the time. I'm high energy and all of that, but I'm tough on myself. I'm tough on people around me. By the way, it makes me respond. And I would say that some people could look at that, including her, and maybe say that my priorities aren't always in the right place. But that's what teamwork does. Mm-hmm. That's how the teamwork works. And I really appreciate when she points out things that should have been done. I should have gotten the car registration fixed. I'm driving around with stickers not good on my car. I know it. I know that. And then I have to sit back and say, you know what? I appreciate that. You're absolutely right. Yeah. Our insurance is coming up for renewal and I don't really care. I'm not focused on that, but it's important. So having a partner like your brother, right? Or somebody that is doing that is, going to know how far to push it and when to back off and when to put more gas on the fire is super helpful for me because I can get very distracted. That's the ADHD part that I could be very distracted and squirrel and purple and yeah.
What's the one thing if you forgave yourself for that it would shoot you into the stratosphere?
If I forgave myself for it, it would shoot me into the stratosphere mentally. Wow, man. That's deep. I think it would be not being so singularly focused. If I could forgive myself for just, I just get through one thing and I'm looking to do something else that's probably even a little bit more strenuous but I kind of feel like I'm doing that now with this new gig and my new company and all of that. But my life was out of balance for a long time. It was out of balance. It hurt a lot of relationships and people that loved me and I loved them, and out of balance just from a standpoint of it could be looked at as selfishness, but I always had a reason or excuse of why that was the best thing to be doing, because I was providing, I was making money, I was starting something new, I was, doing a lot of those resource physical things and being the provider. I don't think I've been unemployed since I was 9 years old. Yeah, that's a lot to take on. Mm-hmm. It wasn't intentional. It's just who I am. I'm never more than about 4 feet from a book about how to do something differently, and not always better. It's right over there. I've always got a book that I'm reading. I've always got something that I've saved. I probably have 22 items saved on my phone that I promise myself I'm going to go in and read when I have time. And so when I have the time, I go and read that, and I should probably not be doing that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. With the entrepreneur life, like if all of it, which it's not going to blow up for you, blow up in a bad way. If in the event that it blew up and everything went away, what would be the one creature comfort that you would be like, I don't care if I have nothing, I'm keeping this? And I'll tell you what mine is.
Yeah, go first. I love it.
Name brand cereal.
Woo! I love it.
Because growing up, love you, Mom, love you, Dad, we had the off-brand cereal. Sometimes just in a bag with no box.
Right on.
Generally with no prize in it.
Yeah.
I don't care if.
So that would be like cornflakes, but not Kellogg's.
Will be like the store brand.
Yeah.
Cornflakes.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Safeway,
for me,
yeah. Right.
And so I ain't trying to have no Crunchios. I'm trying to have, you know what I mean? Like I'm having the Honey Nut Cheerios. Like I am not. I want the actual Cookie Crisp.
Yeah. Right on.
That to me is like, my wife brought it home one time, and it was just for my daughter's birthday. And she had a dog birthday party, and so she got Cocoa Puff balls, not Cocoa Puffs.
Yeah,
and it was in a bag. And I said, take them back. And she's like, it's for the party. I really, like, it triggered me. And I was like, I don't care where we're at. We'll be on the street, but
no party I'm going to.
We will have name brand cereal. What would be that thing that, John, if it all blew up, that you would be like, I'm not giving this thing up?
Oh, man. High-end dog food.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you do the little pouches that are?
I do now. Yeah. Yeah, he deserves it.
Okay.
And I used to think it was crazy, but, I've had that dog through thick and thin for the last 11 years. And, it's like when older people, I've had grandparents and in-laws, and people go to the doctor when one of my best friends, she's 94 years old. The doctor told her, Peggy, you should really not have a glass of wine in the evening. It's just probably not the best thing for you. Those kind of things drive me nuts. She's 94 years old. Let her drink what she wants. It's a glass of wine. She doesn't have a drinking problem. one glass of wine isn't going to hurt you, right? And it's kind of like that way with my dog. I hate to say, because used to think it was so corny when people would say that about their dog, but he's alive today because I have some really good dog food. I know exactly, or my wife knows exactly what to give him and how much, and it's extending his life. It's crazy. I don't want to even get on that tangent because, the water that you give your dogs largely relates to their span of life, believe it or not. Uh-huh. So right now it would be the dog. I would feed him better food before I would, because I don't mind some bad food once in a while.
I feel like such a horrible person now.
Why?
Thank you, John.
What do you mean?
I went for all me, selfish, and then you went, you went straight Gandhi on me, man. Like you went Mother Teresa. No. I'm going to save my dog before myself. And I'm thinking my dog is going to eat some Purina while I'm having name brand cereal.
It is just the opposite of that. That is the most selfish thing for me to say. Because I have 2 kids and a mother, and I'm taking care of my dog because why? That dog takes care of me. That is the only true unconditional, completely unconditional partner in my life. So I'm going to feed that dog the right food.
You talked about details earlier. I got a couple questions for you, then I'll let you go. But you talked about the cognac, bringing the cognac to the table. Yeah. This helped me digest a $4,000 meal, which now I've got a chance. I haven't had a chance to be able to eat at that particular restaurant. I've been very, very fortunate. Patrick Umel, I told you about him, a friend of mine, and we lived in Vegas, and we got to dine in the greatest places, and but that was always a challenge. Like for me, it was always a point where no matter how great it was, I remember the first steak that I had, and this was way back. This was at the Brown Derby. I don't know if you remember the Brown Derby.
Yeah, of course.
But in Vegas, they had the Brown Derby, and it was the first $100, just the steak, just the meat. And this was in 1999.
Woo.
So $100 steak in 1999. Yeah. I mean, my son is wanting that now because he's watching.
$4.50 today, some Japanese
Wagyu,
beef,
A5 Wagyu. Nick
baby.
Giovanni on
Love
YouTube.
It.
Get the right crust and all.
I've never had it, but I love to talk about it.
So, but tell me about this because that.
Yeah, well, that's Will Guidara, man. I mean, I'm telling you. Think about how and why he created that, and I got to also say, Will's other partner, Coach Builder, who really convinced, I think, Will to branch out and let his word be said by people like me and others. Made it happen. So a shameful plug for Coach Builders and these guys who brought this to fruition. Yeah. But Will said, we're going to start with reoccurring experiences because that's what's happening a lot. And then we're going to dig deeper on that. And we're going to go to what is the worst time during your entire 4 or 5 hour, right? At 11 Madison Park, 4 or 5 hours sometimes. I think it was the dining experience. Okay. What's the worst part of the day when you get the check, right? For a couple reasons, not just because it was expensive, but it's your time. Your time is up. You now have to leave. Disneyland is closed, and you gotta stop, get off the ride, and it's inevitable. People have to leave. They got to get up, and they got to pay. So how can we make that a little more comfortable? How can we make that a little easier and not make it a focus? So let's go right in on the toughest thing to deal with. Yes, we want to give people their coats without having to, do a ticket. And yes, we want to be able to recognize them by name by looking up their faces on Google. But let's experiment. And I think Will and his team did that a lot. And I think he addresses that. And a lot of times he talks is they had some failures. And I'm sure if he was going through 5 or 6 bottles of cognac a night, I wouldn't have been talking about it today. Right? But I think everybody got it. And pouring that splash in each glass and then making sure that the customer understood that that's on the house. Have as much as you want. Take your time. Enjoy the cognac. It's on us. Very, very seldom did anybody pour themselves another glass. Right? So take that one little thing and apply that to your business. What's the biggest pain point? What's the biggest pain point that you have in your business? And figure out how to not make it go away. You need people to pay. You need people to leave the restaurant. How do you make it a little bit easier? Man, he's a genius. And he'll be the first to say, I mean, there's probably somebody on his team thought of it, and he's probably said that. He's a very humble guy. But that one little thing has stuck with me, too. It's stuck with me.
I almost thought about it, applying it to the team, because there was a thing that Isidore Sharp said, and I'm going to kill his phrase, but he said that he gave an unlimited budget to make the guest happy to every person in his organization. And when I heard that at first, I was like, that is nuts, and he said, if you're a porter in the Four Seasons and you walk by and a person is not having a good experience at the front desk, as a porter, you have the ability to be able to comp their whole entire stay. Wow. He said, by giving the freedom to all the people, no one actually was called on it unless it was needed, but they had the freedom to be able to innovate, and they felt lifted up and a part of the team. Yeah. It was a scary thing. Yeah. But when we actually implemented it in our company, I never saw a bill for something that was outlandish.
Yeah. It's crazy. Can I tell you one story that's close to that I push back on?
No.
Okay.
We're all done.
We'll save it to the next
I'm just joking with you.
I got to tell you. So prior business partner, and he was actually my boss. He was the founder of Soul Community Planet.
Was he a Weeblo?
Definitely not.
Okay. All right.
Eagle Scout.
Okay.
He went all the way. No, he wasn't an Eagle Scout. But I went to his living room when he was pitching me on this company and this business, and I think they had one hotel, and it was him and his wife running the company. And he said, we're going to do this thing called fair trade pricing. And I said, that sounds really great. Kind of feels like Daniel Boone or Tom Sawyer's Island. We're going to trade a buckskin for a cup of coffee, and it's fair trade pricing. He said, no. Legally, in the way the system works, we have to set a rate for the room. We have to set a rate for our services. But we're going to ask every guest upon checkout is, how much was your stay worth? Because that's what your rate's going to be. Now, being the person he was putting in to the position of being responsible for revenue, ultimately became the person responsible for delivering profit, I was like, that's insane. That is absolutely insane. He said, no, that's what we're going to do, and it's going to keep us on our toes. And just like the situation you mentioned, a porter could give away the entire experience, but I guarantee you that didn't happen more than once. And not because the porter did it. It's because they fixed the problem.
Wow.
Right? So when you have general managers incentivized and promoted or demoted or fired because of profitability or lack of profitability, one of those things is comes into play. And the guest is able to say, I didn't have any hot water, so my $300 room is worth $15. And if they didn't have hot water, usually the person next to them didn't have hot water. And if electricity goes out, then it goes out for everybody. And do you know that our remuneration on that to our guests, year in and year out for the last 5 years, has been less than 1.5%. But knowing the guests knowing that we were willing to do that and that we were willing to back it up. Yeah, we wrote off a couple $1,100 one-night stays at our ranch and our resort up in Oregon. We wrote off things that people were taking advantages of us for. We knew that things didn't happen, and we gave them their money back. But most of the time, and I did this personally. I stood at one of our hotels. We lost power. We lost hot water. And I literally had a stack of $100 bills, and I was standing at the front door ready to remunerate people going out. And they were maybe paying $180 a night, and I would say, how much was your stay worth? Well, we didn't have hot water. We didn't have electricity. I stubbed my toe on the way out the door. I'm late for a meeting. I think I'll pay $150. And I would be like, 10, 20, 30. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, it won't be that way when you get back. No, it was fine. These things happen, the next person said. I own a business. I know they happen. Don't worry about it. I'll be back. It's crazy, right? So it was the same thing at the Four Seasons.
Wow.
If that porter was writing off $2,000 or $3,000 a night and they didn't fix the problem, but they fixed it, and it wasn't the boss doing it. It wasn't the founder. It was people understanding the importance of getting it right the next time. Yeah.
So, John, I started the podcast because of my 2 kids.
Yeah.
Right? Maddox and McKenna. Maddox is a football player.
Yeah.
All about fragrance right now. Wants a perm, growing his hair long.
What?
He wants to wear his hair like Forrest Frank.
Woo!
If you have not, shameless plug for Forrest Frank. I want him on the podcast, too.
Yeah.
Forrest Frank, greatest concert that you could ever take your kids to.
Okay.
Amazing. Phenomenal performer, everything like that. But I tell you, and Nick, you're producing this podcast, take Spencer, but don't take him in those red boots, to Forrest Frank concert. But he's football. He's just a joy. He's actually into film now. He's doing production. He's 13 years old. You got McKenna, who's singing, dancing, performing, the acting, the arts, the thing. Hold on. I never wanted them to worship idols. I just wanted them to be inspired by iconic people like yourself. Yeah. And to have the Michael Jordan of the hospitality industry in studio here, I want you to look into that camera and tell us what advice you would have for Maddox and McKenna, and if you could use both their names, call yourself Uncle John, the Weeblo and MIP, it would be awesome.
Maddox McKenna. I am Weeblo John. All right, take 2. Maddox McKenna. It's Weeblo Uncle Johnny. And first thing I'm going to tell you, only 2 things. First thing I'm going to tell you, you won't get this for another 10 years, and then you won't remember my name. Your dad will remind you, is you're very, very lucky to have parents like you have that put you first. There'll be some day where you appreciate it more, but try to do what they ask you to do. Try to pick up your things. Try to be nice to each other, because there's going to be a time in your life where things are going to get very, very, very hard. I promise you that. And when they do, your dad and your mom are going to be there for you. So someday it'll be your job to take care of them. Right now it's their job to take care of you. So appreciate it now so you can appreciate it later.
Man. That hit my heart, man.
It's true.
And thank you. Thank you for taking your time.
Oh, brother. My pleasure.
You know, I really appreciate it. It's not going to be the only time. We're actually going to record. We're going to record at your house. Tell them where your house is.
Yes, Cabo San Lucas. This will be the first I've mentioned it out loud, but we are launching a podcast called Back of the Napkin, because so many times things have been written on the back of the napkin that either didn't come to a fruition that should have, or did, and they turned into things like Apple Computer. They turned into Southwest Airlines. They turned into Zillow. I mean, I can go on and on about where it thought, because someone was smart enough to write it down when it was their time on the back of a napkin. So we're going to talk to those people, and we're going to have fun. And Kelly is my man. I can't wait.
Well, I can't wait. I can't wait to see too. Well, I've heard about Wild Heart anyway, because Nick had told me about it. I'm just excited to be able to see that part, and I'm more excited for all the people that get a chance and have the opportunity to be able to be in your presence and be able to work with you, man.
Thank you, brother. You're so kind. It's been a great day for me. It really has, and I have one regret, and I'm not a man who lives heavy on regrets, but I regret not being in that room yesterday, because they were high-fiving me at dinner last night because of what they learned from you. So in return, thank you for what you do.
Can we both thank the executive producer of this podcast, Mr. Nick Horgan?
Absolutely. Let's give Nick a round of applause.
Nick, way to go, buddy.
I think he probably slipped out, or he's sleeping over there.
Oh, there he is. There he is. Yeah, jump in there. Yeah, there we go. Bring your face right in here, Nick. There's Nick Horgan.
It's true.
Yes.
He exists.
That's
real.
That's what it's all about, man. Well, I want to thank you so much. And
thank you, brother. I was bugging you for a while. I couldn't wait to do this, and it was again it was the dopamine, because I was nervous. I mean, I listened. I told Nick last night. I said I've heard every one of his episodes. Nick said he has 699 episodes. I said no, he doesn't. So now I got a task. I got to go listen to more. But 15 or 20 I listened to, man, got me just psyched.
Thank you.
You're amazing at this.
You.
Thank you.
You're officially off the hot seat, baby.
Thank you, brother.